What's up, everyone? How's it going, Sifters? Happy Tuesday to you. It is GameFace episode 19, and I am here with the permanent co-host of GameFace, Matt Kyle.
Hello.
So, as you know, Matt has been running the TriCaster for us all this time. You guys have asked for him to come out on camera, and now he is out on camera permanently. We have a brand new TriCaster operator. There is sure to be maybe a couple bumps in the road, but I have every confidence he's going to do great. So if you have any issues with the feed or anything like that, just know that we're having some growing pains as we have a new guy up on the TriCaster running the show for us. So it's been a huge week in games.
Yeah.
Obviously, the second, well, I guess it depends on how you look at game shows, whether you'd say it's the second biggest or the biggest. As far as attendance,
It's getting up there for sure.
well, as attendance, it's bigger than anything. I think they said it was 300 and some thousand people at Gamescom.
I can't even imagine.
I can't either, man. Because, I mean, you think about E3 and it's like, I think the best they've ever had is like 50,000 or something like that. And that's just mania to me. And look, Cologne's convention center is way bigger than the convention center at LA. But that sheer amount of people, it just boggles them. It just also shows you, too, how much better public transit is in Europe than in America.
For sure.
You got to shuttle that many people in there because they're not all driving, that's for sure.
Well,
so,
yeah, but it's they seem to handle. I mean, I've never been to Gamescom.
Yeah.
I've heard it's large and loud and kind of smelly.
Yeah.
But like just the fact that they shuttled 300,000 people in and out of that place, and there were no deaths or riots or something, is like that's a testament. Like they have that stuff down. So I think it's gonna get bigger and bigger. You know, everybody was kind of like, oh, they delayed showing Scalebound and these games at E3 so they could show them at Gamescom. I'm like, well, get used to it.
Yeah.
I think Gamescom is going to be an important thing every year.
Yeah, for sure. And so we are going to talk a lot about Gamescom, and in fact, our deep dive will be all about Gamescom, but there's actually been a couple other things that have happened this week, so we're going to mix it up a little bit with some other topics, and for that, let's get to the Big Six. All right, to start off, we are going to talk about one game that was debuted at Gamescom, and actually it was mentioned well before Gamescom actually happened. That's Mafia 3. So, Matt, Mafia 3, it's set in New Orleans. It's set in the late 60s, right after the Vietnam War. How are you feeling about that setting? I love New Orleans, first of all. I don't know if you've ever been to the city, but it's one of my favorite cities in America. You should go, for sure.
I should. I almost did a couple times, but it's not for lack of trying.
Yeah.
But I'm into it. I mean, I don't really need to see New York again. I kind of feel like, you know, I've seen New York in video games. The only time we've really seen New Orleans is kind of New Marais in Infamous 2.
Yeah.
Which was pretty good, but it's a legit thing. And the Mafia games are such accurate recreations of the time periods the last two were such accurate recreations. I'm into it, and I kind of hope that it all works out properly the way the other two did, because I people are kind of saying like, oh, this is such a weird move for like an organized crime thing, but you know, the first Mafia was about a World War I veteran coming back and learning to kind of readjust by getting sucked into that world.
You're right.
And Mafia 2 is about a World War II veteran getting sucked in that world, and now we're on Vietnam, and we're kind of like a deer hunter sort of situation.
Yeah.
And it's territory that I can't recall a game exploring before, so maybe that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, actually, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be a great setting. It's odd to see that franchise without, like, the old, like, clunky 50s cars and, like, more modern vehicles and stuff like that. I thought that was a little odd. But when you think about it, the mob or the mafia has been around forever.
Yeah, they'll always be.
It's going to continue to be around forever. So, you know, they could do a modern day mafia and it would still make sense. They could do a futuristic mafia and it would still make sense. So, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah,
but
future mafia would be fun, maybe.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of comparisons right now between it and Grand Theft Auto. I think 2K came out today and said, hey, this isn't just another Grand Theft Auto. I don't know where they're getting that from. It really is. It does look to be a lot more open world. You know, they've kind of taken baby steps with that franchise all along. You know, it's gone from like not really open world at all and being kind of linear to like giving you some freedom, but you still couldn't really go into like all the buildings. And now they've kind of moved it along and given you even more freedom in the game. So How would you say your hype level is for this game right now, Matt?
Like scale of 1 to 10, I'd say around like a 6 or 7. I mean, I need to see more. I need to kind of know where they're going, how accessible it is. But it's, you know, I really liked Mafia 2, and I thought Mafia 1 had some promise. And is it the same people? Is it 2K?
I actually do not know if it is the same
2K
folks.
Burno?
I don't think it is.
No? I don't know. Well, 2K I'm sure will oversee it in the way they need to. But like there has always been this sense in the first 2 games of like I really, like you say, they're very directed experience. Even though they have a big world to be in, they're very directed experiences. And like I've always had this feeling of like I just want to go play.
Yeah.
And they never really let you do that in the first 2. And I hope in this one they sort of let the chains off a little bit, and let you kind of romp around the bayou a little bit, and you know, because there's so much side story, side mission possibilities in this new setting that you know, I mean, I really want to drive some fan boats around the swamps and do some unique stuff.
It'll be interesting too to see if they give as much love to this franchise as they've given to Grand Theft Auto. Will we get a multiplayer component to this game?
Yeah.
Because that's one thing, it's like 2K has always given a little extra love to Grand Theft Auto. It's, you know, it gets like everything. It gets an awesome app, and it gets an online mode, not just any online mode, like an awesome online mode that they, you know, it probably could have taken like a full team like a year and a half to build if they only worked on the online. Whereas you look at games like Red Dead Redemption and things like that, like typically those games kind of get that left out. So 2K has really kind of turned a corner for me, at least. Like, you know, pretty much every game it puts out at this point is really, really high caliber. I mean, some might argue that, you know, their WWE games are still, and I would agree with that as well.
Yeah. I mean, they're trying.
Yeah.
But you know, I think their hearts are in the right place, and like it would be very much just in terms of how much autonomy and how much time it takes Rockstar to do what they do. It would be very much in 2K's best interests to cultivate something like Mafia into a Grand Theft Auto caliber experience, so that they could release between Rockstar's releases. You know, like
it could turn into their kind of bumper franchise.
Yeah, like maybe, you know, not to cast aspersions, but they could kind of, you know, become the Treyarch to Rockstar's Infinity Ward.
I mean, let's be honest though. Actually, isn't Grand Theft Auto really a Mafia game?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that like modern Mafia anyway?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're talking about how you could do a Mafia game in the present day or in the future. Well, they're kind of already doing that with the Grand Theft Auto franchise. So
yeah, I mean, but like, there's just that attention to kind of historical detail, because the last time Grand Theft Auto did some history in the way we would consider it was, you know, the London expansion, the 60s London expansion
right.
for GTA 2, which it seems like, you know, Grand Theft Auto is so rooted in the satire of American culture that I feel like they're never going to go back to that idea of like you know, an Austin Powers style, you know, London thing would never happen in Grand Theft Auto today. So I think you're going to, you know, other franchises like maybe Mafia would be, and it would be the way you'd need to go to explore a different angle on that. And I feel like I don't think we'll ever see the Grand Theft Auto equivalent of New Orleans. Like, I feel like they will stick to more media saturated cities.
That would be kind of awesome, though.
It would. I'd be into kind of like a Grand Theft Auto that sort of takes a chunk of the Midwest, and it's like, you know, New Orleans.
Well, I don't know about Midwest. New Orleans, I'm okay with.
But I think about kind of a New Orleans.
I don't need to go to like Idaho or anything like that.
No, but I mean like New Orleans up to like Chicago, and kind of like some wilderness between.
Well, the way that they truncate geography in these games anyway, it's like a 5-minute drive to get from like New Orleans to Chicago or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like New Orleans, Chicago, and like Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, what else
so you
is
can make
there?
a bunch of Cleveland jokes, or Philly,
Pittsburgh. Yeah. Philly's too far east, I think, but Pittsburgh might work.
In Grand Theft Auto world,
Detroit, Chicago,
Detroit would be good.
Green Bay, maybe.
That's where you get, you know, that'll be a good kind of crescent, like
the Rust Belt.
The Rust
Belt. I think that's what they call it.
There's a lot to say about American culture and the neglect of that area of the industries. You know, the way Rockstar does their stuff, I can see them having something to say about that.
Oh, for sure. I mean. I would love to hear what they have to say about the American Midwest. I don't know if the people in the American Midwest would like to hear that.
You know, it's like, well, what do you think, Scottish people? You know, but it's, you know, we'll see. But it's like, I would love to see that, but I feel like they're never gonna, you know, they go for more of a cosmopolitan thing, and maybe the least, you know, the least mainstream city we might ever see from Grand Theft Auto is maybe a version of like Miami again.
Yeah. And before we move on to the next topic, I guess the last thing that I want to say about it is that the game is coming out in the not-too-distant future. Yeah. I mean, it's coming out like early next year, so it's not like they're announcing it now.
I'm on board with this trend.
I mean, it could get delayed, and
True.
I mean, it is Rockstar, and well, it's not Rockstar, but it is 2K.
The spring of next year is apparently the greatest game release
of
all time right now, so some stuff's going to slip. I mean, not everything's going to make it,
but 2K needs it. I mean, the way they plan out their games and the way their financial quarters work, they're going to need that game for the Q1 of next year. Although I will say that their financials came out this week, just as an anecdote, and they actually made a ton of money without releasing a new game for like the first time in their history.
So Evolve didn't like hurt or...
No, I mean obviously they put out the PC version of Grand Theft Auto 5,
right.
But that's not a new game. But all the DLC wrapped up in Grand Theft Auto 5 does really well for them, and so they've managed to find revenue streams to keep them afloat while they're waiting for that next big release, which is good to see. So 2K, thumbs up. Mafia 3, thumbs up from both of us, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that franchise, and I wish they came out more often.
Okay, so here's one of the more polarizing franchises from last generation, Homefront, which, everybody was really excited about this game, Matt. Like when Homefront was announced, it really was. Like it was one of those games that for whatever reason, people were just going crazy. I mean, look, it was a setup, right? It was like, okay, finally a shooter where we're fighting on American soil, defending it from a known enemy that most people would agree that we all hate. And so it was North Korea.
Not a lot of North Korea fans.
Yeah, there's not many fans of North Korea in the United States, that's for sure. And in fact, I would say overseas, there's probably not a lot of North Korean fans either.
No, probably not a lot of fans of North Korea in China.
Yeah.
Frankly. I mean, they're a problem.
Yeah, and so the setup was great, just to kind of set the tone for the sequel here that we're going to talk about. The setup was North Korea invades, are taking over. You're fighting neighborhood to neighborhood in America. I think everyone was behind that. Unfortunately, the campaign was like 2.5 hours long, 3 hours long.
And so by the numbers.
It was very generic, nothing unique or innovative about it. Now, one thing I would say that I really liked about the first Homefront is I liked some of the stuff that they did in the multiplayer. I liked how they handled perks and kill streaks. So I don't know if you remember or not, but how it worked was like, you didn't have to get like 9 kills in a row without dying to like get a kill streak in the game. Like basically as you got kills or did things in the mode, you would build up points. And then you could hold those points for as long as you want to get better kill streaks. So if you wanted to get the nuke, like, for a lot of people who play Call of Duty, like they never get the better kill streaks. Yeah. They never get a lot of the better kill streaks at all. Like
the only time I've ever gotten the good kill streaks is playing at review events.
Right, yeah. Or you're playing other journalists.
Because you're not playing the best people in the world sometimes, because no one's ever played the game before.
It is funny, though, if you think of... that's one part of it. Like, people haven't played it, so they're just learning. But it is funny how you go online and just playing as random people, and they're way better than, like, the game journalists.
Sure. I could tell you stories, folks.
So I like that. I liked how they made, like, everything more accessible in that game. And then the other thing that they did was, if somebody was, like, totally kicking ass and had, like, a big kill streak going... they would show up as like a bigger icon on the map, which would cause people to like gang up and hunt this really good player. And again, it kind of, look, for competitive, if you're talking about like esports or something like that, that model's not going to work.
Yeah.
But if you're just talking about a game that like people who are tired of getting their butts kicked in Call of Duty would like to play, there's some good concepts there. Yeah. So now we have the sequel here that they've shown. And in all honesty, I thought this game might be canceled because it was announced so long ago.
Is this Crytek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was announced forever ago. We haven't heard a peep from it in forever. I think there was like 1, maybe 2 trailers for it. Like I honestly thought it was just done. Like
and this goes back to when THQ did the fire sale. With
right.
Others,
yeah. This was one of those games that was like they got caught up in that whole THQ bankruptcy and fire sale and everything. Well, wow. Like.
Yeah.
Wow. Not only did they debut the game, like they debuted the game with tons of gameplay footage. Like a good 7-8 minute walkthrough, really impressive, like really polished. And look, it's one of those quote unquote vertical slice things where, they have all the time in the world to get ready. But you know what? Every developer has all that time in the world to get it ready, and not every game looks as good as this when you finally do get to see like the demo at a trade show. So to me, if they can get the campaign out to more than 2 hours,
that would be nice, for sure.
Which seems highly likely. If they can even continue some of the ideas that they had in the first one in the multiplayer, I mean, they might have something special in their hands here.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we're already all behind the whole concept of it, protecting America from invaders. And
you can get past the idea that somehow someone could take over America. It makes sense.
Yeah, another funny thing about this, too, that we're watching this footage right now is just how conveniently there's ramps everywhere. I mean...
Well, they've been hiding out here for a while. They know how to get in and out.
Yeah, they know exactly where all the ramps are to get in and out of there. I mean, a lot of games do that. We saw that with the Uncharted 4 demo from E3, where there was just always conveniently a ramp there for them to use. But I don't, it's a little bit more in the future. There's a lot more futuristic tech. Like, I think the biggest technological advancement in the last one was a drone. Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, like, you couldn't actually operate the drone. Like, you told it what to do, and then you sat and watched it. You didn't actually control the drone. At least that's what I remember from it. It's been a while. I'm surprised I remember this much about the game, to be honest.
I played about half that campaign and kind of walked away. It didn't.
You didn't finish the campaign.
It didn't grab me.
I don't know how you couldn't finish it.
I had other things to do.
Yeah.
It was
like make a sandwich.
It was like the trailers for that were much more involving than the actual game to me, because it's like, and at the beginning, you're on that bus and you're seeing all these these poor American citizens being harassed and shot against walls and everything. I'm just like, let's go. But now it's just it's like open that door and close the door and now move a bookcase in front of the door. And I'm just like, what am I doing? It was a slow burn, and after a while I was just done with it. But this looks way better.
One thing I really liked about it was fighting in suburban America, because suburban America has a very unique look to it. We've fought these wars in modern day Europe and everywhere else pretty much, except for in America. And when you're fighting in these around these prefab homes, basically, with these tract neighborhoods, as they're called, it just had a lot of impacts. I remember my grandparents lived in a neighborhood that looked just like that, where every house is kind of built exactly the same, or maybe there's 2 or 3 different models you can choose from or whatever. But generally all the homes look the same. They all have the same lot size. For whatever reason, that just really struck a chord with me, because that is Americana. That's the American neighborhood. And so, it was really impactful, but it lost its steam very, very quickly when you just started doing the same stuff in the game that you had done. Here's the turret section. Here's the sniping section. And look, games in general are always going to have problems breaking away from that. You're going to have a sniper level in pretty much every first-person shooter.
I think you got to smooth over those transitions where part of home for a lot. I think it's just a problem of kind of sort of B-list shooter campaigns in general. It's you very clearly see those delineations between, now it's time to snipe things. Yeah. Now it's time to run. Now it's time to have a firefight with some rudimentary cut. It's and the best shooter campaigns, I think, blend all those things together, so that you are doing them and transitioning between them without thinking about
Agreed. I agree.
As a design thing, you're thinking about it in the sense of that's the appropriate thing for me to do right now, but it feels more organic. And I think what they've shown in this Homefront reveal is it looks like they're on that. I mean, Crytek's good at that. But it looks like they're more on that path with this, and maybe they can exploit this concept to its fullest extent. Because, like you say, I think Modern Warfare 2 had that too, where it's there was those levels where you're in suburban America and you're kind of fighting around the McDonald's stand-in. And you're and there is kind of that feeling of you're at my home now.
No, it's funny. It makes a difference.
It's a real. It's not fighting in Eastern Europe in some World War II game. It's there's a little bit of possessiveness if you're an American. Where
now, granted, the people watching this stream or watching the show in Europe right now are I don't care.
America's never had a stand-up fight war on its, not for...
We only fought ourselves, we fought each other on American soil. We've never really had anyone come and invade us. So.
Not since in War of 1812, the Canadians came down and burned the White House.
Right.
We don't remember that.
Yeah. And look, as Americans, it's a real fear that, we have, it's why America fights so hard to keep its guns. Yeah. It's why there's, people in Europe are
okay, so let's say North Korea invaded and they took Washington, D.C. And, does New York just give up?
Yeah.
New York's no, come and get us. It's every other major city in America is okay, come take us next. You would never have the forces to take down all the major cities of America. You would always have a stronghold to fight back in. But, there seems to be some of that in this game.
Oh, for sure.
Where it's like, they clearly, the revolution, the resistance has, some real footholds in the country here. And that's true to life, I think. And if you accept the idea that they would be able to invade and control America,
which is hard to accept.
But they would never be able to cover everything because America's so, the United States is so huge.
Well, I think in this game too, it's like farther in the future,
right?
And North Korea has established one city. I think maybe it's Philadelphia as like its base, where
you
like
got your town.
Yeah, my town. Yeah, and I think if you go in, it's like shoot on sight. Basically, is what they say about Philadelphia. If you go in there, you just get killed like immediately. So. It looks like there's intrigue.
Why would you go after Philadelphia as your? I
don't know.
Like, talk about like the most dangerous population to try to take down. Those people
that is the last city you would want to take for sure. Yeah,
like you'd have 4-year-olds like taking you out with rifles and stuff. I mean, Philly does not back down from anything.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's an odd choice, but yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited for this. I mean, I might even say I'm maybe more excited for this than Mafia 3. To be honest with you,
a little bit. I mean. The Americana is strong with both games, and I don't know what it is, but the kid in the trailer where like he's kind of got the stars and the stripes motif sort of sewn into his fur jacket. That was awesome. It looks really cool. Like,
get your little heart
pain.
He
kind of does the like that, and I'm like that kind of like it's like that iconography is
mines
really
your patriotism.
It does.
It does,
and it's kind of I guess it could be considered a cheap trick, but it works on me.
Yeah,
I like it.
So, Matt, this next topic you're going to have to carry because I have to tell you, we're going to talk about World of Warcraft. And I have played World of Warcraft for a grand total of 3 hours in my entire life. When I think we were all working at G4 when it came out, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So I remember we all bought it. I bought it. I went and paid for it because you guys all convinced me to buy it. And we all went home that night and started playing it. And I had to kill like 15 prairie wolves. Mm-hmm. And I finished that first mission and then went and started another one, and I had to kill like 10 rats, and I was like, nope, this isn't for me.
Not everyone dropped the thing you needed.
No.
And then you're like, oh, really? That's okay.
And so that was it for me. So the irony of the story is, so at Gamescom, I guess we should set it all up. At Gamescom, they basically announced the next expansion for World of Warcraft. Earlier than very quick compared to how it typically works with the franchise. Usually we'd have to wait months and months longer to get a look at it. Well, the other thing we should mention is that the subscriber numbers for World of Warcraft are at like rock bottom right now. They're like at around 5 million. It hasn't been that low in almost 10 years. And so
from a high of like 11 or 12 million.
I think it may have got to 13 at one point even. So obviously their numbers, they're bleeding customers big time. They feel like, maybe they need to do something desperate to get subscribers back. And so what did they do with this expansion? Well, by all accounts, and again, I'm not a big World of Warcraft player or fan.
Level 110, my God.
Yeah.
Is there no end?
Yeah, so what they're saying is that like they're kind of taking it back to its roots a little bit, and maybe in hopes of capturing that old audience and getting those 8 million people who have stopped playing World of Warcraft to come back and play it. Matt, as somebody who played a good bit of World of Warcraft, and how long has it been since you played it?
It was years. It was right when Wrath of the Lich King came out. And Morgan, when we were still on X-Play, Morgan Webb decided we were all going to get to the level cap because she wanted to play it. So she told 4 of us oh, you're all going to play this now. And so okay, yes, Morgan. And so we did. And I took a here's an example of how long ago this was. I took a Ret Paladin to level 80, soloing dungeons. I mean, that was when Ret Paladins were just overpowered to this level that when it got nerfed. And none of my stuff worked anymore. I was like, but that's really kind of. I wasn't angry about it because it was dude, I rode the high wave for 6 months on that, and I was in we'd go on dungeon stuff with our group, and I just run through it, kill, and I'm like, can you slow down? We got to pick stuff up, and I'm like, no. So it's been a long time. We tried to play. I tried to play what was it, Cataclysm, and it just didn't grab me, and. I just sort of moved on. I haven't played it since then.
So what is it going to take for you to get back into it? Is there anything that it can do? It really?
I don't think I'm not an MMO person. Like you say, the quest design. I mean, I can kind of get into it, and I enjoy RPGs, and I enjoy character progression, and I really love World of Warcraft's art design, art direction. I love the way the game looks.
Yeah,
and
they're doing a lot with a little with that
Yeah.
art style for sure.
And what a future-proof art style that was.
Oh
It was-
yeah,
it
look
was
how
really
old this
smart.
game is, and it still
Really
doesn't.
smart.
Look at the trailer. I mean,
Yeah.
it looks great still.
Yeah, I mean they did that big upgrade a couple years ago, but like it's that the basic art direction still looks amazing.
Yeah.
And but like I've never been an addictive personality in terms of like the MMO thing. I played a bunch of MMOs, but I've never really. The only time I played them to the level cap or like completion or whatever is when I had other friends I was playing with that would like kind of like peer pressure me into keep playing, because I don't play the same thing every night. I'm not interested in that. I don't always go back to things. And so
I do actually. I always end up finding like one game that like I play at least
Well, I
a
mean,
little
I say
bit almost
that
every
having-
day.
I say that having put like 150 hours on The Witcher 3. Like,
Yeah.
But it's like,
but that does come to an end eventually.
yeah, but I don't play that every night either.
Right.
But it's like, and I've got a few MMOs. I still play Old Republic sometimes, and I still play The Secret World once in a while, which is like, that's the Lovecraft fan in me. I don't know why I dig that game.
That's Funcom's.
It's
Funcom's game,
yeah.
right? Well, they actually are hitting some bad financial straits
they
right
are.
now. They're trying to
Yes, they
sell
are.
themselves or something. So
Just get Dreamfall Chronicles out before you go down in flames. That's my only.
I would be surprised if anybody decided to buy Funcom. To be honest,
as a Longest Journey fan, they always have a place in my heart because I love that series. And
Anarchy Online was huge for them for
Yeah.
quite a while. I know when it first launched, everybody was all over that. Was it yet another MMO that everyone's like, you should try this one, Shane. You're going to like this one.
Never,
and then I didn't like that one.
You're a
And
little like me. I
City
think,
of
in that-
Heroes was another one. And
You're
then,
like me, I think, in a little bit. In that the MMO that will finally hook me to like a problem level, I think, is going to be like something that has combat like a Platinum game.
Exactly.
Like something
Yeah.
that runs in real time, and when you fight someone, it's like a fighting game.
Yeah,
It's
and
like-
it actually,
it's like your skill.
your response actually
Yeah,
matters.
exactly.
Their skill matters, yeah.
Like, so I can get into kind of the turn-based and sort of, pseudo real-time stuff of MMOs, but like it's never going to hook me the way a real-time combat system would. And I realize that that's sort of
Do you think that's what it's going to take to get people back to MMOs at that level?
maybe, but like I don't know.
Because
Like,
look,
I feel
all
like-
these
I
others
feel
have
like
come
if you
along.
did that to World of Warcraft, like a whole bunch of people would lose their minds and scream because like it's not what they want. I think there's clearly 12 million people for a while wanted World of Warcraft, and that who cares what I think in that
But
regard.
maybe those people have moved on to where they're at a place that we're at. Look,
True,
a lot
like,
of
where
the
did they go?
people who played World of Warcraft hadn't already played games for 20 some years like we had when it came out. So maybe they've got to the place too where they want to graduate.
I'd
and
be
maybe,
interested to know where they lost them. I don't know if there's any way to ever track that, but did they all go to like League of Legends?
That's the thing. I don't think they've gone anywhere. Like,
They stopped,
it's
you
not like there has been another MMO that's done well. I mean, I just went through a list of a bunch of them, but then there was Lord of the Rings Online. That was another one. Everyone was like, this is the one, Shane. This is the one. There was Conan.
I played that, and I would never have recommended that.
Yeah, I mean, I can just no. Before it came out, though, like I bought it like the day it came out.
Age of Conan kind of had
Hyborian Adventure, or whatever it was
like
called.
a pseudo real time thing going on. They did that pretty well, but it just the problem with MMOs for me is like I always hit a point where I need other people, and I don't know anyone who wants to play.
Right,
And
yeah,
then you have
that
to
is
hook
an
up with
issue.
random people, and then
Well, you don't have to explain anything
right.
beyond that. Once you start hooking up with random people, it generally is.
anyone who's played Destiny can tell you.
Right.
Even on that level, it's difficult. But if you're dealing with like a very complicated, I've never been on like a 40-man raid or anything like that. That's just. I've never known enough people who are interested, and I've never gotten involved in like.
I think something like that might be fun, though.
I think it absolutely would be, but it's like for me, it's like
I can't
wanna
get
play
there,
it.
though.
Yeah, but it's also like,
I'll
I
never
said,
play
I
it
don't
long
wanna-
enough to
I don't
get
wanna play
there.
that every night. So like,
Yeah.
if I don't want to, video games are my, I mean, I made my living on making TV shows and stuff about them, but like. They're still kind of my hobby, and like if I
Yeah.
don't want to play something tonight, I don't want to play that, and
Yeah.
so I don't want to like have it be a situation where like everybody's counting on me to be. Part
Well, yeah,
of
they
the raid
schedule
tonight,
it,
and
and it's
all
like, you gotta
scheduled,
be
and, like,
on at
that
8
night I
o'clock.
don't want to play World of Warcraft, and it's like, well, I'm stuck either like screwing these people over,
Yeah.
or playing a game I don't
I
want
don't
to play.
wanna play, yeah.
And that's not a situation I want to be in.
Yeah.
But
So you think this is not going to stop the bleeding?
I would be surprised, and I don't have any suggestions as to how to do that. I don't know what is causing it. I don't know like what you could do to get people back to Warcraft, but like there's I don't
Blizzard
know.
has a lot of smart people working there.
They do.
And they have a lot of those people working on this problem
Yeah,
because
if anyone can figure it out, they can, I'm sure, but I just don't I don't know
Maybe
what
it's
would
just
bring me
there's
back.
no answer to it.
And
Maybe
they got, like there was a thing a while ago where they decided, oh, you're not going to be able to fly in new areas now, and the player base like went, and so they're like, okay, you can fly, okay.
Well, if you look at it, it's like they're down to like 5 million subscribers, but dude, that's still 5 million subscribers
5 million.
at $14 a month.
That's a lot.
You do that math monthly, how much money they're still generating with that game.
You'd take that for Sifted.
Yeah, I think I would. Yes, gladly, I think I would. I think we all would. So, yeah, I look, again, I'm not a big WoW player. It seems to me like anytime you look at a graph of anything and it just has this long-term downward trend, like it is so hard to
maybe
turn
it's
it around
time for something new in the Warcraft space. And, maybe the movie is where Warcraft goes from here. Maybe Warcraft goes full lore.
Or maybe they finally just released World of Warcraft 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of time for it, isn't it?
There's got to be something, under all those secretive wraps over at Blizzard where they've, I mean, how many iterations of a theoretical World of Warcraft 2 do you think they've done?
Oh my gosh, I can't
50,
even imagine.
100, that has to be something on their minds, in the back of their minds all the time, is how do you follow this up when the inevitable
crash happens.
Yeah.
And I would hope maybe it's real-time combat this time.
If anyone can do it, it's them.
I don't know if I'd say that. I don't know if they have a lot of experience with really
They don't have experience with it, but they have the resources, they have the time, and they have the motivation to stay on top of the heat.
They should just buy Platinum and have Platinum come in and do the combat for it, and then they'll handle all the number crunching and all the other parts of it.
Get Transformers Devastation out first.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so there was a bit of a controversy, and one of the things that we want to do is be a little more timely on this show, and actually we're going to talk about something that just happened today. Well, it happened yesterday, and then it kind of rolled over in today. So yesterday, all the reviews went up for Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is a first-person wandering adventure game. Well, I know a lot of people hate when people use that term to describe that genre, but that's kind of become a trope, or so to speak, of the first-person adventure game. And
we just call it one of those indie games where you're lost.
Yeah. And they don't tell you what to do. And so the reviews came out. They were all pretty positive. It's doing pretty well as far as Metacritic is concerned. But the one common complaint about the game in all the reviews yesterday was that you had to walk too slow. And so literally every review is like, the walking is way too slow, like you can't run. Well, as it turns out...
There's a surprise waiting for you.
Yeah, as it turns out, you could run. And you can run in the game. So we have all these journalists now going on Twitter. Like I saw Daniel Bloodworth from Game Trailers. He was like, oh, I had to use a stopwatch to figure out that it actually was faster. Otherwise, I could not tell the difference. So
what was the run button? I haven't played it. What was...
The run button is like the R2. The run button is the R2, and apparently it's like it's not fast enough. And so it's really hard to tell whether you're actually running or not. So what it really brought up with me is a lot of people are evaluating this game based upon what they expected the game to be, not what they just actually sat down and played. And like one of the editorial policies that I've always had is, whether at GT or wherever, is that if you preview a game, you can't review the game because it creates expectations about the game. And when you review a game, you should go into it without any expectations and just review the game for what it is. And so I feel like a lot of these people had watched a lot of trailers about this game. They had, watched a lot of footage about this game, maybe done interviews with the developers, and had built these expectations about what the game was supposed to do or was not supposed to do. And the funny part is the developers have come out and they've said, oh, well, we feel bad because we feel like we should have told people there was a run button. But I don't know if that's the case, Matt. How do you feel about that?
I think it's weird in the sense that, like, if you're reviewing something, why don't you press every button on the controller? It's like, if it's true that there's no definite way to tell that you're running in it. There's such a small, if they're really using stopwatches to tell the difference, then okay, yeah, I can see that. But there's I've seen some pretty major oversights in some game reviews. But I remember there was a time when Dean Takahashi was reviewing Mass Effect 1, and he didn't know you could level up, and he he like played the whole game at level 1. Like he never was able to he never upgraded his stats or any of his abilities. And the crazy thing about that is that like that's really hard. Like no wonder he thought the game was too hard. So like you can miss stuff, but like the crazy thing about this one is everybody missed it.
Yeah.
So you know,
I've never seen this happen before. Look, I've reviewed games and I've got stuff wrong before, and like the developers have emailed me and been like, "Hey, you got this wrong," and blah blah blah. And look, I'm not saying that I've never made a mistake in a review. I definitely have. I think everyone has who's reviewed games. Someone's made a mistake, you got a fact wrong, or you misread something while you were playing the game and you thought something worked one way and it really worked the other. In like 17 years, I've never seen everybody get something wrong.
Yeah, the only other thing I can, we'll tie this back to Mafia, but I remember when Mafia 1 came out, there's a race about a third of the way through the game with like old style like 1920s like hot rod cars, and no one could finish it. None of the reviewers, we were calling each other and being like, "Have you finished the race?" Like, no, we were trying to get saves from each other.
Yeah.
And eventually 2K I think had to send out like patched saves.
Yeah, we actually talked about this last week on the show.
Yeah, and got through that. So like that's the only other comparable thing I can,
But that's just a skill thing or a bug thing. Like this is like people sat down to play the game.
A basic element of the game everyone missed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And like, is it like, when you're in that, is it probably, the developers kind of saying like, oh, it's our fault. Like, and maybe, if everyone missed it, maybe like the run just isn't fast enough.
Yeah.
It needs to be, the feedback isn't there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing that's probably what it is. Like, maybe, there's not like a sound effect that accompanies it, like panting or whatever, like
just like that.
You're not getting the feedback that you need from the game to clue you in that you're moving faster, whether it's the speed or the sound effects or whatever else.
Which makes you wonder what was happening in testing, because it's like, wouldn't you think testers would be like, after how many hundreds of times you played this game, wouldn't you be like, I want to get through this little thing? Clearly they were running, and if the running wasn't fast enough to tell any difference, like, wouldn't there have been a conversation about that?
Yeah.
I always wonder if that's there or not. So, what a weird situation.
It is really bizarre, man. I've never seen anything. So now everybody has to go back and like redo their reviews.
Everything?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of the main reasons that like they dinged the game. Think about it though. If you didn't know there was a run and you were, if you've seen the footage, the walking in the game is really slow. Yeah. And a lot about this game is like you're running to stand still anyway, because it's not like there's a ton of action in the game. You're just kind of like wandering around, gathering information, like listening to like conversations from dead people and things like that. So, if you spend all this time going somewhere and then all you get for a payoff is like basically an audio snippet, and you're like, oh, I have to walk all the way back down this way again, like I could see where it would negatively impact the scores of the game. And so
we're a long way past Myst, folks.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get away with that. It's like, oh, you're just gonna walk all the way to the end of this thing and flip this switch and pick up this piece of paper, and then you're going to walk all the way back.
Yeah.
Oops, you flipped the switch wrong. You got to go all the way. But like, I don't think people are willing to accept that anymore.
Well, they weren't. I mean, that's why they were dinging the game. They were like, "This is ridiculous that you can't move faster."
Reviewers, I think I'm curious what like regular players think, and if they didn't find the run button, if they didn't notice that the run was any fast, like that's a really interesting conundrum. Like if you're the developer, I wonder what you think at that point. Like,
well, it's also an interesting design decision, because some developers, when they create games, they want them to be ambiguous, and you want like people to discover stuff on their own. And I did the same thing when we were designing Sifted. Like when you go and like select, like when you level up and you go to select your interests, like we never assign like any names to any of those categories. We're like, we'll just leave icons there and let people draw their own inference. It drove some people crazy. They're like, I'm never going to use a point until you tell me what each one of those are for. And I was like, no, like that's not the idea. Like the idea was so people could come to your profile and see very quickly what kind of stuff you're into. Like,
but that's also like that's brain damage from gaming. Because I don't know what level I am, but I haven't spent a point in like 3 levels, because there's this thing in the back of my head like, I better save some in case I need some in some other and it's like For what?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You're never going to do anything that like requires like you can't read this post if you don't have 3 in brain.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what is? It's not going to happen.
Right,
so
right.
What am I worried about? I'm worried about it because games have trained me to be worried.
Yeah, to save it in case you may need it later, because you never know if that boss fight's going to come and you're going to need to. And with like a lot of developers, they like to leave their stuff ambiguous, and like especially with these first-person wandering games, like they don't really want to tell you much. They want you to just kind of get absorbed and immersed into the world and get sucked into it and explore on your own and kind of discover things on your own. And this is where one of those times where keeping it real went wrong.
You kept it 100 a little too much.
Yeah. And look, I don't necessarily blame them. Like I don't think that they should have like been like, oh, we needed to message to people that there's a run button. That seems silly.
No, I think it seems like a really big, like innocent misunderstanding on every side.
Every angle.
Like,
yeah, it's
like
crazy.
Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong here, and I don't think anyone's at fault. I don't think the game is bad because of it. I don't think reviewers are bad reviewers because of it. It's just one of those things. Like I think people will refer back to for a long time. It's like, remember that time that like everyone got that wrong and no one knew what the hell?
Well, I think also, the people who were kind of burned by this, who are the critics, like, I think they will learn something from this, though.
I hope so, yeah.
I mean, I think they won't take things for granted, because I feel like that they did do a little bit of this.
Nobody emailed them and said, like, hey, can you run?
Well, I'm sure that's what happened.
Yeah.
Well, you mean the developers? Like, none of the... Yeah, they didn't. Or they would have figured it out.
We've asked questions of, like, the developers or the publisher, PR
Well,
people.
look, when you get review copy, they give you contact information.
Yeah.
They say if you have any questions or problems, like, reach out to us and we'll answer them for you. And it's very helpful sometimes.
And I've asked some stupid questions over the... I mean, really, like, things I should have known already.
But you asked.
Yeah.
And, nobody did. Like, nobody said, wait a minute, how could this not have, like, a move faster button? Maybe not a run button, but something to make it move faster. And so I do feel like maybe there's a little bit of culpability on the parts of the critics here to not, like, at least wonder and just assume that, well, I've never heard about it till now, so it must not be there. Yeah. So definitely an interesting conundrum. I've never seen anything like it. I think it'll be a really long time until we see something like this again, because I think everyone's going to, both sides are going to learn from this. The developers are going to learn, hey, we should probably tell them about stuff like this. The critics are going to be like, I'm never going to take for granted again that something's just not there.
Like, I can think of like individual incidents where like a specific reviewer missed something really simple. Yeah. But I can't think of one where everyone was totally on the same. Because reviewers do talk sometimes. I remember when I don't remember, like Sessler was reviewing something before you worked for us when you were on GameStop or GameSpot. I will always mix those.
Everybody does that.
GameStop and GameSpot, whichever one I mean to say, I'll say the other one first. I don't remember what game it was. Maybe it was Conquer. It was something, and like you'd both go out to smoke.
No, that was Conquer.
Conquer?
That's how I ever first met Adam.
Yeah, and you trade like he kept getting stuck, and you'd get and like you'd be like, "What'd you do to get past this?" And that's how I think that's how we found you.
That's how I met Adam. I was working at GameSpot at the time, and he and I would meet up and talk about Conquer's Bad Fur Day, and then he ended up offering me a job from that, and that's how we ever met. That's how I started working at Tech TV and G4, and it just started the wheels in motion until here we are today on Sifted.
Thanks, Rare's Obscure Puzzle Design.
All right, so for our next topic, we're going to talk about Time's magazine cover for this month was VR, Oculus specifically. And so everybody is freaking out over the cover because they say that it shows virtual reality in a bad light. And so there you can see the cover. I mean, look, it is kind of corny. He's floating on the beach.
That's the founder of Oculus?
That is the founder of Oculus, yes. And
The founder of Oculus is 22?
Very wealthy, very, very smart.
Yeah.
And so, look, Time Magazine is a big deal. And look, now we're starting to get to some of the Photoshops. So it's turned into like this pop culture phenomenon where people have begun Photoshopping the cover and kind of creating their own versions of it. So yeah, there's that one. If you want to flip to the next one. And this is one of the things I love the internet for, is for stuff like this. Photoshop.
I don't know what he's playing.
Yeah. I think we've got maybe one more. Yeah, there's two more. Yeah.
Hang on, Oculus, dude.
Yeah. And so, yeah, they've been creating memes and So here's what I want to talk about with this topic, though, is that a lot of developers who are working in VR, like, freaked out over this. Like, a lot of people had fun with it and created the Photoshops, but a lot of people freaked out over this stuff. They were like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I'm working on these games that we're spending all this money on, and, like, they acted as if it was, like, a threat to them. They said it's misrepresenting it, it's making it seem dorky, and it's going to turn, basically what they're saying is it's going to turn the mass market away from Oculus Rift, which is the big headset. It's probably going to be the most successful headset ultimately.
Certainly the most open headset, so I would say it's the best bet.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, yeah, it's a weird looking cover, and it's an interesting idea that, like, you blow the whole wad on this cover and it would kind of change how the mainstream accept it. But I don't think they're totally off base, because we were talking earlier about, you know, gaming is kind of an accepted visual thing, a social thing now. Where, like, seeing someone with a controller in their hand is not all that weird anymore. Like, you know, you'll even see, like, non-gaming related TV shows where, like you'll open with, like, people playing a game holding controllers the wrong way or whatever. You know, they'll be upside down or they'll be using both analog sticks wrong or something. But they'll still be playing a game, and, like, they'll kind of move from there into the conversation. It's kind of an accepted thing people just do now. VR is going to look weird. VR is going to look super dorky no matter how you slice it. It's going to take us a little bit back to, like, you know, the original NES days when nerds played the games or whatever, and, like, you know, it's a little power glovey. You know, like, if someone's trying to play Mario Brothers with that back then, we were like, what are you doing? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a tough sell to the mainstream. To
it is nerdy. Here's the thing, it's freaking nerdy.
For sure.
It is nerdy. Get over it.
But I get what they mean in the sense that that's not helping. You know, like, that cover isn't helping.
But what could they have done? Like, put them in a closet where you play, like, Valve VR?
Somewhat.
Like,
I think just not have him be in quite such a, like, a twinkle toes kind of pose. Like, that's the thing, is, like, where he's all up and weird, and, like, you can't see what he's looking at, and you don't really know what he's doing.
Here's the thing, though.
Like,
Time magazine is a mainstream magazine. Hardcore gamers do not read Time. It's casual people who are sitting, waiting to get their teeth cleaned at the dentist. It's, you know, those are the people who read Time. And so it does create a double-edged sword, because this is your chance to reach these people. And so I see why the developers are angry.
Yeah. And
because
they have
they're like,
lot
this
of
was
money tied up in
They're
this.
like, right, and they're like, this was our shot to reach these people, and I'm not happy with how it was represented. So I get that part of it, but I also feel like people who would be reading this in Time magazine, that's what they want to see from virtual reality. They want to be like, oh, I can feel like I'm flying, or I can feel like I'm at the beach when I can't afford to go to the beach. Like, I feel like Time is getting way too much flack for this, because I feel like they did what they're supposed to do as a publication, and they created something for their audience. Their audience, that's what they think VR is. And if they can convey that, yes, you're finally getting what you've wanted from virtual reality after 2-3 decades, 5 with holodeck times
right.
dreaming, that you're finally getting this, like, that is what will resonate with those people. And I feel like the developers, one, I agree with you. They are looking at, like, a big investment that they made is coming under threat. But I honestly think a big part of it too is that, like, people are angry that it makes gamers look like dorks again. Like,
yeah, but it's going to. I mean, that's what VR is going to do to some degree.
It is. There's, like,
no
way to make VR look cool.
Yeah, when VR comes out, there's going to be a lot of YouTube videos of people playing VR stuff and looking like weirdos. You know, like, that's just inevitable.
Well, I think the other thing too is I don't care if people view me as a nerd.
No,
like,
absolutely not.
There's a lot of people who play games.
I played Oculus stuff, and it's amazing. Like the Valkyrie, the Eve dogfighting simulator. Like, I'd almost buy an Oculus Rift just for that, because that is. It's so good. It puts you there in a way that you know. I mean, yeah, your brain kind of makes it real when you play it on a normal monitor or whatever. But that game put me there, and I only got to play it for like 3 minutes, and I would have stabbed a man to sit there all day and play it all day. I mean, and that was like that was like an SD, you know, I think developer kit 1 like 2 years ago at E3.
Yeah.
And now, you know, that stuff looks even better, and so. That's the difficulty of VR, and I think, you know, if, you know, people who were freaking out, you know, the developers were freaking out about this being portrayed wrong, I think this is a little bit of a wake-up call, in the sense that
it's probably not going to go mainstream,
no,
bro.
Well, also,
it's probably not.
Well, also,
like,
this is something
Not
this
for a
is,
while.
Also, this is going to be a problem. Like you look ridiculous doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, you also looked ridiculous playing the Wii, and that wasn't a problem. But that was more of a social thing. This feels more like you're kind of going into an isolation.
You're shutting everything out,
and like. This is a problem that the VR, industry, I don't know what you call it, the VR subset, the VR industry or whatever, is going to have to get out ahead of. Like, this is the thing here's your challenge, VR, PR people.
Because it is here now, you're right.
Yeah, you're going to have to sell normal people on making themselves look like that in the name of selling this device to them. Because the thing is, no matter how stupid you think you look with that thing on, as soon as you put it on, you get it.
Yeah, for sure. But you have to put it on.
You have to put it on.
Yeah, you'll never get it until you wear it.
And even like videos don't do it. You just don't get. And I'm sure everyone who's watching who has tried these things is kind of nodding their head because it's like you have to put it in someone's hands or put it on someone's head rather. But it's like and that's what you need to do, and like that's how you got to get ahead of it. And even if it takes setting up crazy big areas in Best Buy or whatever with like those like the old Dactyl Nightmare like setup where you stood on that podium with like bumpers around you and like put the headset on and shot things, like you have to get it in people's hands. You have to let them touch it and see it and be there.
Here's my thing: is like people who
and they're gonna look like that cover.
Oh yeah,
when they do it.
You are. And here's my thing: is people. The definition of nerd has changed drastically in the last, 20 years. Like, playing games when we were growing up was not cool, man. Like, there was an arcade phase where it was kind of cool to hang out at the arcade, but, like, playing, home console games was never really cool. Like, there's a reason, gaming exploded, at the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2 era. I mean, that's really when it became mainstream. Before that, it was, 20 million of us all around the world who really loved it. And, we suffered through what it's like to really be a nerd, to be the outcast, the person who is different from everybody else for doing this. You're not a nerd anymore if you're playing video games. And I feel like a lot of people say, oh, I'm a nerd, and they assign this tag to themselves, but they don't really know what it really is. And so now when they see this magazine cover, they're real nerds now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's this whole inner turmoil thing going on inside them where but that I don't want to be that. It's I'm a nerd, but I'm not that kind of nerd. It's well, then you were never really a nerd in the first place, man. This is what a nerd really does. He does stuff that other people think looks weird because he doesn't care, because he's really into it. And it's these girls that wear I love nerd shirts. No, you don't love nerds. You love some guy who sold his company for $400 million.
I think there are real ones out there, but
real what?
Nerd. Yeah, for sure. But some of the girls wearing the I Love Nerds shirts are legit.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about nerdy girls. I'm talking about these 10 out of 10 girls that wear models who are they don't love nerds. They love people who made a lot of money off of technology, and they like people who surf the internet. They don't love the guy who's going to sit in his house and not go out for 2 days because he's programming something, or he's creating a mod for Skyrim, or they don't love the real nerds. They love the people who can buy stuff that makes them look like nerds, not people who live the nerd life. And I feel a lot of the
you're drawing that line between geek chic,
right,
and actually.
Who is a real nerd? The people who are the programmers, the people who are the creators, the people who are trying new things, and they don't care how they look to other people when they do it, and they don't care the response they get from other people when they do it.
I'm not necessarily. See, that's the thing, is I'm not necessarily interested in who's the true nerd, who's the real nerd, but I think you're right in that VR is going to be one hell of a litmus test.
Yeah.
For the people who are into it because they love gaming and they want to see the next step in that genre, in that medium's evolution, versus people who are oh, this is cool, and it becomes kind of a social thing. There's going to definitely be the early adopters on the VR thing are going to have their metal tested a little bit, I think, because you're gonna reset that nerd clock a little bit to kind of the late '80s when it wasn't cool to sit around playing Mario, on the couch all the time. And now you're going to be in this whole other world. And
I love that VR is bringing all this up, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome. It's good to finally see this paradigm shift where there are true nerds again. It's not yet an accepted part of pop culture.
So much money at this thing too.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you put Miyamoto or somebody or Phil Spencer on the cover of Time magazine, this wouldn't have happened. It's an accepted part of pop culture lexicon that those guys make games that it's okay to play. VR, shutting yourself off, isolating yourself, that is always going to be looked at as antisocial behavior. And antisocial behavior is always frowned upon by the mainstream. And that is going to be a big hurdle for VR to get past.
Well, I think we'll see. I mean, there was a time, I remember when I was a kid and Walkmans came out, that putting the Walkman headphones on was like a social faux pas. Like
Well, there's still a bit of a stigma to people that wear headphones
A
everywhere.
little
That hasn't
bit, but
changed.
People walk around with their iPhone headphones in all the time, and talking on the phone like crazy people speaking to the air, and like I mean, yeah, you'll see it, you'll hear it in the grocery store, and you'll be like, oh, where? But like, it's not like it was that. People will get used to it. People are now used to people looking down at their phones all the time and not engaging with people on the street or elsewhere. I think the VR thing, give it 10 years.
Yeah.
Give it enough time to
We're at the dawn of this technology right now. I mean, we forget, it took video games, 20 years before they were really socially accepted as like pop culture?
If you go back to the beginning of the, like the Pac-Man Space Invaders days, I think around 99, 2000, the advent of Halo. Really, it was, I think the thing that changed everything was that graphics got good enough that you didn't have to imagine and abstract things as much anymore. It was a more complete experience, and it was more complete analog to film.
I think the subject matter too.
Yeah.
Like Metal Gear Solid on the original PlayStation was one of those games that kind of turned the tide where people were like, oh, maybe games are kind of cool because they're not just all about like a plumber jumping on a Goomba.
Well,
and whatnot.
I think the main, I don't have any evidence of this, just my own experience, but I think what really changed was the fact that when you played Metal Gear Solid 2, or you played Halo 1, or you played Ocarina of Time, what you saw in that game was what we saw in our heads when we played
all that time
stuff.
Yeah.
Like when we played Legend of Zelda 1 on the NES, we basically saw in our heads what was on screen in Ocarina.
You're right. You're totally right.
And now someone who didn't engage with that medium the way we always did could get that same experience and that same reward out of it. And I think that's why gaming exploded when it did, when it stopped having that abstraction. And I also think that's one reason, like, the indie game explosion happened with people like us, and kind of the old school gamers really like that stuff, and there's all that kind of pixel art and kind of the throwbacks to the old games, because they bring back that feeling of abstracting the setting versus the gameplay, where like you can play the game and you can kind of help you create it along with the game in your head in the way you did in the old days. And that's just not, I think that's the big dividing line between like AAA blockbuster games and like kind of the smaller indie games. Is like, like Galaxy Z I'm playing right now, and like that brings me all the way back to like those old games where it's like yeah, I got to imagine all this stuff happening correctly, and it's such a weird thing. And I think that's the difference in VR. You've got both of those things tugging against each other, because on one hand you have the most non-abstract, we will do the holodeck for you kind of thing experience, which I think is what the mainstream wants.
No, for sure.
Versus you have to look like a total dweeb.
Yeah.
And like, which one's going to win?
Maybe that's why Microsoft is onto something with HoloLens.
It could be.
Yeah.
Like just wearing that, wearing the Dragon Ball Z, over 9,000 detector thing.
Yeah.
I'm too old to know what it's actually called. Shut up. I was that far too old to know Power Rangers and Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of that may be kind of a compromise.
I think VR is going to separate the wheat from the chaff as far as the nerds are concerned.
You could be right.
I think you're going to see who the real nerds are when it comes to plunking down that kind of money to wear something that makes you look that ridiculous.
Well,
at least in the short term, maybe not long term.
I welcome anyone who
wants to have a nerd off.
Never considered themselves a real nerd, but like can't resist the VR thing because I love it. I'm into it. But I am definitely on the real nerd side of that, because just all I needed was to play that Valkyrie demo, and I'm like, yeah, I believe it. And I don't know if $700.
Here's what I have to say, fellow nerds. We don't need to be accepted by the mainstream. We're okay being our own subculture. We don't have to be accepted by other people to be okay. I've done it since I was a little kid. I think I've turned out okay. We'll survive. Let's do this.
The thing I love about the mainstream thing, though, is that it gives the people who make the game so much more money to play with.
Yeah, that's true.
I've gotten some really good gaming experiences out of the fact that a bunch of people who didn't play games when I was a kid play them now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my
I'm not saying I don't want new people in gaming. I'm just saying that those people are going to be really nervous about playing around with VR and spending that kind of money to do something that's ridiculous.
To some degree, but it's just, too tempting. It's too tempting to have that experience just sitting there, waiting for you, tantalizing you.
Yeah.
I'm really afraid I'm going to buy Morpheus to play No Man's Sky in VR. I don't want to. I don't want to spend all that.
Well, actually, didn't you see the big story now is like he said, they're talking about like No Man's Sky, like it may not have VR.
Well, it's gotta have. I mean,
eventually, yeah, I guess. But now the developers are saying, well, it might have VR. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like you've been saying all along, this is like the killer app for Morpheus. Like, I don't know what happened there.
I don't know what the truth is. Sometimes people say this or that or whatever. But I don't believe for a second that at the very maybe it's such a small team. Maybe they got to concentrate and just get the game done. Don't worry about Morpheus yet. But I'm sure at some point you can play that game. Maybe the PC version will be Oculus ready. I don't know. Yeah. But at some point you have to be able to play that game in VR. Same with like Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen. Like sitting in a cockpit is such a good first VR experience.
It is.
When I played Valkyrie, I got dizzy. At some point, and I was like, oh my god! And the guy who was like supervising said, "Look down, look at yourself, look down." And you look down at your own like digital body, and your brain kind of
figures it out,
recalibrates to where you are. And I was like, that was
thank you.
You have those little transcendent experiences in your gaming career, and that was one of them for me, where I'm just like, oh my god, I looked at a fake version of myself and I wasn't dizzy anymore.
That's pretty trippy. All right, we should move on. We talked about that a lot longer than we probably should have, but it was a good conversation nonetheless. So, on to the last topic of the Big Six. This is quickly becoming a tradition here on GameFace. After a big trade show, we do 2 up, 2 down. So if you weren't around for our post-E3 show, basically what we do is we pick 2 games where our hype level increased after the trade show, and then we pick 2 games where our hopes and dreams were deflated after their showing at the show. Here's the funny part about this, Matt. We were going back and forth. We basically picked the same stuff. But we wanted to keep the conversation interesting, so we've kind of switched things up a little bit. I guess the first thing we can say is for Up, we both chose, well, let's talk about Star Wars Battlefront first. Yeah. Because we initially both chose that, but...
Yeah. I'll let you have it.
Yeah, you let me have it.
Because also, like... I'm a giant Star Wars fan.
Right. See, that was why
I was always going to like it. So you
I was confused.
Up on it is better.
I was confused of why you would add that because I already knew you were like hyped to the moon over this game.
But you add, I'm a flight person. I'm a
you like flight games,
and like adding that flight, the flight squadron thing. Also,
I mean, look, it's the most awesome-looking rogue squadron you could ever dream of.
Well, it's so good that it's not good, but like we missed a generation of Star Wars games outside of Force Unleashed 1 and 2, which didn't really, and we missed a whole generation there, and then even the ones before that were very Clone Wars and prequel focused. So this is almost 2 generations of no really top quality original trilogy content, and look at that.
Oh man, it's amazing.
It's crazy a Star Wars game looks.
I'm honestly, I think maybe more interested in this mode than like the shooter
I am,
stuff.
For sure. But I'll tell you that the other thing that got me is like at the presentation they showed this. And then they talked some more, and they showed, we're going to show you one little last montage thing of stuff. And a lot of it was old footage in the montage, but the last thing had those 2 rebel soldiers come around a corner, and one gets force choked. And you see him from his point of view, and you see him get force choked and thrown across against the bulkhead. And he comes around the corner, and Vader's just not running. Jader's just walking down that corner, and he just deflects a bunch of bolts without breaking stride and brings the saber down. And it's that is as scary as Darth Vader should be. And they're nailing it with this game on a level that I'm excited about. I know it's just Battlefield 4 hosed down in Star Wars juice.
I was excited, exactly, and that's why I was excited about it, but not through the moon excited about it. I was I've played a lot of shooters. I'm pretty picky with shooters at this point because I spent so much time playing them. The shooting part of it really had me concerned. I was I could see myself playing this.
Battlefront 2 had some floatiness to it.
It did.
Too.
But they've said that there's a lot of auto aim involved and you can't aim down the reticle, and I'm like, how much precision is going to be involved in playing this? So what I was like, okay, what's going to happen is I'm going to play this for a week. My whole fanboy Star Wars thing is eventually going to wear off, and I'll move on and play something else. So to see this mode so fully fleshed out and so amazing looking, knowing that I will have something to fall back on if the shooting doesn't resonate with me, really, really shot it up for me. So
Look at that. I mean,
oh, it's stunning. Look at how many ships are in some of these scenes as well. So yeah, now both of us, Matt, are all over this game. It did win Game of the Show at Gamescom. It basically won consensus Game of the Show at E3, which I kind of disagreed with at the time. Now I do not disagree with it. I am so freaking pumped for this game.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat with you on the ground combat stuff. I wonder if I'll want to play it more than a couple weeks. But the flight mode, it's on my up because this flight mode is so what I wanted from it, and I'm excited.
So Matt, you swapped out that pick so we could talk about some more games, and your first up is
Destiny. And we just went over all the MMO stuff, but I played Destiny for about a month when it came out, so I probably put like 100-something hours into it.
I played it for about a month, but I didn't put 100 hours.
I played it a lot. I really enjoyed the moment-to-moment gameplay. I thought almost everything else was annoying, but and I'd sit there on that load screen and just be like, I want to stop. I should play something else. I don't play. And then you'd start it again, and you'd pop that first head, and like that moment-to-moment gameplay, that Bungie shooting action was so good to me that I'd forget to stop playing it. And eventually, I was a Forever 29. I never even finished the raid. Some of my friends with the PR guys were kind enough to try to take me and my friend through the raid, and we never quite made it. And
I stopped at level 26 or 27.
I got to level 29. I just I hit that point where it's like, oh, you got to do the raid. The raid's really hard. You need the raid gear to do the raid. I'm like, but how do you get the raid gear? Well, you do the raid. And it's like, well, what are you doing?
It's like the chicken or the egg.
So I kind of lost interest. I haven't logged in. I logged in last week to get strange coins. And but now they're changing it so that you level up
normally like any other video
level
game.
Cap of 40, you will level up by gaining experience, and you will and obviously there will be probably raid gear. There'll be raid gear and stuff that like in World of Warcraft, your level cap, but you need to boost your stats beyond that with the special gear to handle the hardest stuff.
Yeah.
But that's fine. But you have to make me feel like I'm progressing, and then they've got to have your progression of your character at the mercy of just the random number god is terrible. It's so bad, and you felt like you'd wasted whole nights at times, and I had to walk away from it. But changing it like that, and the new adjustment where the random number god is going to take a look at what you have, kind of guess what you need, and kind of maybe help you out in that. Because that's the thing. It's help me out, man. I paid money for your game. You're not trying to suck a subscription out of me. So
they are going to suck another $40 out of you for the Taken King.
But it's but it looks good, and the changes to the classes look cool, and I'm interested in that. And
I think the story finally looks like something may happen that I care about.
I wanted to mention it to ask you actually. Because Nolan North is the new voice of the Ghost, and they actually had him re-record
all the original
Peter Dinklage's lines. Have you ever heard of anything like that before?
Never.
Especially when Dinklage was such a major part. And I so want to know what happened there.
They announced it today what happened. Oh. Well, they went on the record today to say what happened. They just said it was scheduling conflicts, that they needed to work with Peter Dinklage and he couldn't do it.
He's a busy man.
He is, for sure. And so they were like, well, we don't want to lack continuity with the game going forward, so we're going to bring in a new guy. We're going to have him revoice all the stuff that you already voiced, and he is going to be the voice of the Ghost going forward. So, I mean, look, Peter Dinklage got paid. He got all the fame from the launch of the game, and people played the game with him in it for almost a year.
He will always be my wizard on the moon.
Yeah. So that's what happened with that. That came out yesterday, I think, or maybe early this morning.
I've been basically offline for several days because I was at a wedding up in the middle of nowhere. So I played a lot of catch up today.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to go back.
The cinematic trailer that they put out, I don't know if you've seen it since you were offline, but they put out a cinematic trailer that we were just showing while we were talking, and it is awesome. It gave me somebody to hate. Who was really the enemy in Destiny? It's there's this darkness, this ambiguous group of whatever that you're supposed. No one gave me a reason to really hate them. I always wondered, if really I was the bad guy when I played Destiny. I was always waiting if they're going to do this flip-flop thing where you find out
that thing about how
where you find out the darkness is actually the good guys and you're the bad guys, the Guardians.
That seems like that was the original idea. If you look at some of those expose things that came out of, about half a year ago, where It was like, yeah, I mean, the Traveler was supposed to, like, we were the ones killing the Traveler, but maybe we didn't quite know it or something like that.
Right.
But, like, they've kind of, it looks like they're finally sort of taking, like, the readjusted story and, like, taking it in a direction where it works.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'll try it again. You know, I didn't think I would come back because, like you said,
I'm going back.
Yeah,
I haven't
like
played it since I finished the campaign.
Because like you said, whenever you log in, it's just like, I feel like I don't even speak the same language as the people that are there, still been playing it.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm gonna try it. Like I really want that game to be what I play.
I also agree. That game went up for me, but you know we can't keep picking the same ones. And so actually, we did settle on one that we both selected to finish up our 2 ups, and that is Scalebound.
Yeah. Platinum on fire. Still, I mean,
I don't understand it, man. When do they sleep?
I don't know. But it's like not only are they good at what they do, but they just keep picking like dream projects from. I mean, this is Scalebound is what I, you know, in my head Drakengard was back in the PS2 days, as opposed to like. Yeah, I like the Drakengard games, but they're basically just Dynasty Warriors with a dragon hanging around.
Yeah.
And this is like, I mean, this is, it's a realization of something that you always wanted but didn't know you wanted.
Well, I mean, it's going back to what we were talking about World of Warcraft, like RPGs with great combat. I mean, that's what I've wanted, and that's what we're going to get with this game. And, you know, it's not even just that. It's like, you also have this huge beast that follows around and is like your ally, and like, it has its own AI and it attacks on its own, or you can order it to do stuff, like, and it's like, I love like the buddy system of you plus this huge creature fighting other people who are like normal human size with other massive creatures. Like, I just love the whole aesthetic of it.
Kudos to those like 3 soldiers for facing down the guy with a dragon backing him up.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, you are dedicated to your jobs there.
Well, that does kind of bring me to my one big gripe about this game. Yeah, I mean, look.
Jet Set Radio versus Drakengard thing.
Yeah.
But it looks so good, and like you say, you know the combat's going to be solid.
That's what I'm saying, like a really deep action RPG. I mean, I'm hoping this game, I mean, I'd be shocked if it were, but I'm hoping this game is somewhere around the same size as like The Witcher. Being able to play again, look, The Witcher's combat isn't bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not. It's not platinum, that's for sure. And so, being able to play an action RPG with that level of combat, look, I don't think it's like Bayonetta or anything. It doesn't look to be that deep, which might be overkill for a game like this. But even if you start approaching that level of depth in the combat, I'm going to be really happy. But
and you know it'll feel good.
Oh yeah, of course. The impact will feel perfect, and then. Going back to what I was saying before, the one thing that does concern me about this game is it seems awful cheesy. Like, you know, it gives me a little bit of that DMC Devil May Cry vibe where he's constantly like firing off one-liners that don't really make a whole lot of sense and aren't really funny and aren't really clever. And like he puts the headphones on. Like, you know, there's also a question of how does the plot work as far as, you know, why is he wearing like Beats by Dre, but he's like running around like with dragons? You know, there's that kind of part of it. I'm sure they explain it in some crazy way. Maybe it's like an Assassin's Creed thing where you go into some machine or whatever. Who knows? I don't know. They may have even mentioned it. I just haven't seen that information yet. But so yeah, the aesthetics of it are a little concerning. Like the story could be completely hokey, but you know what? I've fought through hokey Japanese games before and enjoyed the living crap out of them. So,
and if you can blow the limb off a giant mantis like
that,
like I'm gonna forgive a lot.
For sure. It definitely feels really rewarding. It looks unlike really anything out there. It doesn't really look like Monster Hunter.
No.
It doesn't look like Horizon Zero Dawn. Oh, they're there. It looks exaccly like Horizon Zero Dawn.
But I like. I mean,
but look, you don't have an ally in Horizon. You don't have this like massive creature that follows you around and takes care of you. You don't transform into like some crazy beast like you do in this game. This game is all sorts of awesome looking, man. I mean, there's a reason we both chose it as one of the ups. So. This could be a massive exclusive for Xbox One. Like
this could move some systems.
This game could finally be what we had talked about a couple weeks ago on the show. This could finally be a needle mover for Xbox One. We were talking about how it needed one. The games that we were seeing weren't really doing it. Talking about Forza and Fable and stuff like that, and Gears of War. This game could actually be something that moves the needle for Xbox One.
Especially with the co-op.
Yep.
Co-op on this is they haven't said much about it, but the co-op on this could be. I mean, 4 people with 4 dragons with 4. I mean, that would be amazing.
Yep. So we got to move on. We are running out of time here. It's time for us to go on the negative and start talking about games that didn't impress us much at the show. I'll kick it off. Actually, we're both kicking it off together with a game that did not impress either one of us, and that is Final Fantasy 15.
And I would like this game to impress me.
We all would.
It's just not... Like, that trailer is inexplicable.
Well, we're not even watching the trailer now. We're watching the gameplay.
Yeah.
But here's my thing. So remember, they blew off E3 with this game. They said, oh no, don't worry. We are going to tear the roof off of Gamescom with Final Fantasy 15. It's going to be its big blowout. We're going to pass up E3, the show where there's the most eyes on it, to have this big feature at Gamescom. And then what did we get? We got this that we're watching right now, which is basically running down a hill until you run into, and look, it is cool to see a classic Final Fantasy.
For sure, but we just saw Scalebound.
Right.
You know, like in a very similar environment, doing way more interesting things.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's cool to see Marlboro and all that, but look, they don't even fight him. Like, he shows up, they like hunker down, and then it ends. And then the trailer that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like, it was kind of like it's like an attempted rape, and then like a guy holds his child for like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
In like some kind of prologue thing. And
yeah.
Like, I get they're trying to kind of set this, because we really don't know anything about the game in terms of the story of this area. Like, why are they driving a convertible sports car around a giant dragon monster? Like, nobody knows anything, but at the same time, it's like, just shut up and put it out. I mean,
well, the weird part too is that they had teased on Twitter that like the day before this dog. Like, literally, they put up like a 2-second video clip of just the dog. And so everyone's like, oh my gosh, the dog's a big deal in the game. It's going to be like Fallout or whatever. And it's just a little bit in the trailer.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
Look, I understand what they're doing here. They're building like this bond between the father and son. And like the son is actually one of the main characters in the game. I'm sure it'll provide motivation for him when he's actually in the game at 15 years later or whatever.
Right, but it's been 11 years or
But there's
something.
no context for
you need
this.
To show me,
There's no context for it, so it lacks like the punch. Yeah. So it lacks the punch. It's like if you don't understand like how this ties into anything else, and like you said, like the earlier scenes of this trailer are just completely random.
Yeah.
Just a bad showing for this game. Like no real demo. It's just that like pre-prepared gameplay clip that was really poorly produced and poorly captured, and just all around a bad showing for this game. Like, it could be amazing. It could be.
But it's someone on, I don't remember if it was Twitter or Tumblr, but they pointed out like it has now been more days since they announced this game than there were days between the release of Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 7.
That's insane.
At one point, Square put out 7 games in this series in the space it's taken them to not even yet get this one out.
Yeah.
And so at some point you have to wonder, it's like, is this going to be worth? I mean, can it possibly live up to even the most base expectations after 11 years of waiting for it?
It's going to be tough. All right, so let's move on to our individual picks. My other pick for my second down is Crackdown 3.
Wow, what about the showing there really knocked it down for you?
It looks just like Crackdown 1 and Crackdown 2.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
And I did not like either one of those games. I liked the first one a little more than the second one. The second one was just dreadful. And it just looks like the same thing. The destruction thing, obviously, is a big element of this. And they did like a separate demo where they showed how using the cloud, you can do crazy stuff with the destruction. The problem is that like that only works in the campaign. It doesn't work in the multiplayer. So there's no destruction in that because you have all these people, and like I think in the one demo they said to like do some of the things they were doing. They were using like 5 like cloud servers. Like,
wow.
Yeah, they could like show it like ramping up the servers as like he kept doing stuff and like increasing the demand. It's really cool, by the way, what they're doing. Like to be able to get that much more juice out of hardware using the cloud, really cool idea. And then look, it will pay dividends in the campaign. But to me, that's all there is in this game, is the destruction. Like,
you're waiting for that to be used in a game you want to play.
Yeah, I just haven't seen anything else compelling about it. Like,
I'm excited in the sense that it's like more Crackdown, but like I don't have a counter to what you just said because it's true. Like You're right. It's the same thing, and hopefully it's more 1 than 2.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about Crackdown right now.
Yeah, and to me that's not good enough. I mean,
yeah, I see what you mean.
I had expectations for it going into Gamescom, knowing it was going to be unveiled, and ultimately I was disappointed with what I saw. So look, I hope it proves me wrong. I hope that destruction is like the most awesome thing ever, and it completely changes my mind on the series. But based upon what I saw from Gamescom, my vibe on it is definitely running a little low.
And my other down would be, it's a little more personal, I guess, but it's Sims 4.
That's an odd pick.
It is an odd pick, but like part of this is like I don't really play The Sims too much, but my girlfriend is a Sims addict. She has like 30 gigs of Sims 3 user-generated content on her computer, and like she makes all these crazy houses and crazy families and all this stuff, and like she doesn't care about Sims 4 at all. And like this, it's just like the way they've kind of broken all this stuff and like sucked more content out and like changed like how you can even interact with it mod wise, and like they announced they showed the new expansion, and they had a really kind of embarrassing thing where everybody
that stage show was terrible.
And
this is the trailer for the expansion we're seeing right here. It's basically like a social expansion. It's like all about hanging out with other Sims.
And I asked her, like, once this was all the information came out, I'm like, so would you want Sims 4 yet? Do you want? And she's like, no, like not even close. Like I'm just going to play this some more. And it's like it's crazy that
someone who's that addicted to the game has not moved up to Sims 4.
So it moves down for me. Not that I'm like super excited about Sims 4 expansions, but it moves down for me in the sense that it seems like such a no-brainer. Like how they've got such this unique fan base and these people that love this game, and they don't seem to listen to them at all. And like it seems like it should be so simple, but they're just obsessed with like giving them the same content again. It's like it's the same with Sims 2, where they really sell the expansions, and then Sims 3 they launch. You can't launch with all that stuff, but like a lot of the Sims 3 expansions even have equivalent expansions with the same kind of type of content on the Sims 2, and now they're trying to kind of do it again with Sims 4. And I feel like you just needed a whole new approach to Sims 4, and it's not there, and they're not evolving in response to the community kind of telling them like this isn't working for us,
right?
And we'd rather just play our really complete Sims 3 game than wait for you to get Sims 4 up to speed.
Yeah.
And it would be a shame to see that. EA is not afraid to shut down.
No, I know.
A franchise that's not working anymore.
Yeah.
And it'd be a shame to see The Sims go away.
For
just
sure.
because it's such a staple in gaming.
Fair enough. All right, that'll do it for the last topic of the Big Six. Our trailer of the week this week. It was hard to pick. I mean, obviously with Gamescom, tons of great trailers coming out. But ultimately, there was one that bubbled up to the top, and that is Battletoads in Killer Instinct Rash. And it's not just because it's a really crazy idea to have someone from Battletoads in Killer Instinct. It's actually how they handle the trailer. It's a mix of like the old school. Well, I'll just let you see it. Let's roll it.
This party! Cameos are killing me.
That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, it is. I was wondering when Rare Replay why they had like kind of realistic drawings for the Battletoads now, and I guess it was because they've got some Killer Instinct action.
Well, a lot of people were talking about making like a new Battletoads game, and I was like, man, I don't know if that would work. Like, how do you make like a character model of like a toad?
Well, like that.
Yeah, but after seeing it, I'm like, you know what? It works. Like I would
right
play
down to all that crazy like morphine and like making the limbs grow, and like, it's hard to kind of imagine, but then you see it. And it's like,
I would play it. I would play that game.
I tried to play as him in Killer Instinct when they first announced it last week, but I couldn't get it to update. So
there you have it. So our deep dive this week, it's not going to be its own topic. We're basically just going to tie up some loose ends from Gamescom that we weren't able to get to throughout the course of the show because we did have some other topics we wanted to talk about and not just make it 100% about Gamescom. So we're going to run down through a couple of kind of the bigger games and some games that made their debuts there and talk about them. The first one I want to talk about is Quantum Break. What I was calling the Microsoft 3,
right,
which was Scalebound, Quantum Break,
and
Crackdown were like the three games that they put off from E3 to show at Gamescom. And so this was the third one. I was really excited about this game leading up to Gamescom. And actually for E3, I was really disappointed when it wasn't shown there. This one I almost added as like one of my downs, to be honest with you. So we find out that the television show integration is maybe a little more heavy-handed than we thought. Like, I honestly thought that it was like a deal where you play the game, and then maybe the plot leaves off in the game, and then you go and you watch a little bit of the show, and then the plot stops there, and then you pick it back up in the game. But that's not actually how it works. It's like they're actually interwoven within each other. So it's almost like a game that has like FMV. Like,
right. Like a little Sega CD action going on there.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical about this game in a weird way because like it looks cool, there's a lot of cool ideas in it, but like I just wonder, like I don't quite have an idea of what I'm going to do in it or what that integration is, and the more I find out about the FMV integration, the more the TV integration, I question it. And like right now, it's like if it wasn't being made by the Alan Wake and Max Payne guys, I would be much more skeptical than I am.
Yeah, I mean, look, the gameplay looked good. It looked fun. Like, the time shifting looked quick and intuitive and reactive. And, you know, anytime you're dealing with, like, time shifting, it can always get a little clunky where you're almost kind of sitting around waiting for stuff to happen. I didn't feel like it looked that way. But it's just, you know, they put out a separate trailer just with, like, the live-action people. Like, it's starring, like, the Iceman from like, the...
Oh, from Game of Thrones? Or...
No.
Oh, no, that was...
From Fantastic Four, I think it is. No, or from X-Men. Yeah.
X-Men, yeah.
And it's him and Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. There's a lieutenant from The Wire plays one of the characters in it. And so look, they've got like big actors who are playing parts in it, but dude, I just don't want to watch a TV show when I'm trying to play a video game. And so I'm really concerned about it. It looks like the game part of it's going to be okay. I'm not so sure about the whole
I'm in full
TV show
wait and
part.
see mode on that one. I
Yeah.
think.
But
And,
it's also coming out not too long from now. It's coming out in the spring. So,
yeah. Do you think holding those three back was worth it in the end?
yeah, because look, they won Gamescom, hands down. It wasn't even a competition. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, Microsoft destroyed Gamescom. Like, it was their show. Like, Sony had a booth there, but there was no news coming out. Like, I thought that Horizon Zero Dawn was going to be... They didn't show squat from that game from there. Like... They owned
Even
it.
though Guerrilla's European. That's surprising.
Yeah. And so, you know, Microsoft held its own at E3. I mean, could it have won with those games at E3?
Not against that Sony press
Probably
conference.
not. So
you're right.
It held its own without them, and then it goes to Gamescom and it wins and gets all the attention. So I think it was absolutely the right move to hold those. Yeah. I wish I could have gone and played some of them, but we'll see.
I would have loved to have seen Scalebound.
Okay, so let's move on to Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain. Put out a new trailer. It wasn't overindulgent. It was just a couple minutes long, and I thought it was a really good trailer. And in fact, I think it is the best trailer for the game so far by a wide margin because it casts a wide net. It shows tons of the game, different elements of the game, a bunch of interesting plot stuff that kind of had been held under wraps for a long time. It's exciting. It moves. I thought this was the best trailer for the game so far. So I thought they did a good job there. And then the demo that they did at Gamescom, which was all about Mother Base. And it's freaking awesome, man. Like, this one almost made it on my up. Like, because I feel like they did a really good job showing this game at Gamescom. Like, None of it was overindulgent. There weren't like 11-minute like tutorial videos like we got around E3 time. There was no like 10-minute trailer. Like his trailer was 2 minutes. His demo was really interesting and different and showed off a part of the game we hadn't seen a million times already. I was really, really impressed with Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pains showing at Gamescom. The game's coming in like 3 weeks. Perfect timing for them to have a great showing with it. I'm ready to put all the Kojima, Konami stuff to bed at this point. I don't even care. I just want to play his damn game at this point. And
this is a really good like set up the pieces coming in like 3 weeks. Like here we go. Like this is
trailer,
a great appetite setter.
This trailer shows a bunch of crazy stuff. Like there's a couple things they only show for like 30 or 40 frames that you're like, wait, what was that? Like right there. Like what was that? There's like.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm excited to see, because I feel like maybe Kojima went totally, Kojima has no limits on this.
Yeah, I mean,
both in terms of how crazy he was going with budget and time and everything, and also like he never has to answer to this again.
He has nothing to lose with this game now. Yeah, so I'm really pumped. I'm glad because I honestly was kind of lukewarm on this game up until
that game looks good.
Oh yeah,
visually. I mean, visually speaking.
Well, they're finally starting to show. Last-gen versions of it for PS3 and Xbox 360, and they look amazing too, man. So that engine scales. But here, like, this trailer's insane.
What the hell is that?
Again, like, it sent my hype for this game through the roof, as it should be. It's 2 weeks away from Metal Gear Solid 5. We should be pumped for it. So let's see next, and this is a game that you're probably going to have to carry the conversation for a little bit, Star Citizen.
Yeah.
After a lot of people harping about the game, wondering what was going on with it, him firing back at fans a little bit, refunding one of the Kickstarter or one of the funders' money, he shows up with this absolutely massive demo, a multi-crew demo for the game.
Yeah,
so
and this is what this game needed really badly. I mean, just proof that this stuff exists.
Yeah, because what everyone wonders, is the game even really there?
It's like, look, we made a thing. And obviously they've got the dogfighting module with the hangar module, but we've never seen anything like this before. And outside of some screenshots and some quick video, and they've done like those commercials for the various starships. But here you're basically getting a shot, a little quick shot at what this game is probably going to feel like when you play it on day one.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you're getting. You're seeing what the gameplay loop is going to look like a little bit.
Yeah, and it's maybe it's not as smooth, it's a little rough around the edges in places, but like it's here. Like what they said they were going to make is here. And you can see it all the pieces are in place. They just got to get it to a level where they can call it.
Matt, when do you think this game's going to come out? Because it's come out in chunks, right? There's like the shooter part comes out first, is that right?
I think the space stuff's supposed to be
the space
first.
stuff comes out first.
The shooter stuff got delayed. And I don't think there's any word on that yet, and where they're, because you're always going to have a first-person section, but like there was supposed to be some kind of like first-person combat that may or may not make it at launch. I mean, I know they're saying next year sometime. I would like to believe that.
Man,
I feel
that's rough.
If I had to, if you were gonna put a gun to my head and put money on this, I'm gonna say spring 2017.
Damn.
I mean, there are.
It's really ambitious. I mean,
there are very few more ambitious Kickstarter games than this, and clearly,
I mean, no, there's not very many games as ambitious as this. Period. Yeah. It doesn't matter where the money came from. Like
in a genre that is largely unexplored for almost a decade and a half. And,
I mean, look at this, man.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the cry engine just blowing the blowing the doors off your poor video card.
Yeah. I can't wait to see the minimum specs for this game.
Yeah, the minimum specs are going to be some kind of quantum computer state.
Look, it's looking good.
You need to be able to process your GPU with pure light.
Yeah.
It's going to be some kind of like Destiny level kind of thing.
It's looking good. It's looking epic.
Yeah, God, I hope it's good. Look at.
I know you do. All the money you have invested in it already. I know.
Things folding out. I mean, that's all been seen in like the hangar module already.
There's one of your ships, Matt, that you spent $100 on.
Mine is the military module. It's got a turret on top. That one's painted white. Mine is much more military gray.
Yeah.
But look at we haven't seen the HUD and stuff, and like in a full gameplay, you can play the dogfighting stuff, but
look at the detail in that cockpit
too. The detail's crazy.
Yeah.
And
Pretty good showing, I think. Even though it was just this pre-recorded demo, he didn't play it live in front of anybody.
I mean, you're never going to totally convince the haters until they can get their hands on it for real. But I think this does a pretty good job of showing definitively that there's a game there.
Yeah, they couldn't fake all this.
Something. They haven't just been playing foosball and drinking at the Cloud Imperium studios. So. I think this maybe did a little bit to alleviate some of that skepticism.
All right, so let's move on to the last game we're going to talk about before we close out the show. Mirror's Edge Catalyst. We finally got a look at a huge chunk of gameplay. Matt, what was your impressions of it?
I think it looks good. I mean, my main thing is I'm glad that they are moving away, because I played the first game and I liked it, and one of my main problems was I didn't like that they sort of hedged their bet letting her use firearms.
Yeah.
And so now they're not doing that, and it's going to be a little more pure, I think, in terms of the concept of the game and the character. And I mean, it really looks good. I wish I knew a little more about when we're going to get to play it, but it's got that unique look. It's got that unique kind of gameplay.
Well, it's coming out early next year, right?
Is it early next year? Because they're still showing that pre-alpha thing.
Yeah.
But and I gotta say, I didn't hate it, but like the main thing that Dying Light did was make me want Mirror's Edge because it had that parkour action, and this just looks like such a realization of what they tried to do in the first game and succeeded.
You're absolutely right about that. It is. You can tell it's exactly what they tried to get.
This is what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, but here's my thing about this, is this game looks pretty much exactly like the last game. Sure, you don't use any weapons, but otherwise, it looks exactly the same, which, look, if you're a fan of the game, and I'm one of them, and it has, like, a cult following, but that's the problem, like, that's what it has, is a cult following. And so, if you're going to make the same game and expect the game to do better sales-wise, those two things don't jive. It's like if you have this game that you made that was really good, and there was this group of people who really liked it, but it was a small group, and you're going to continue that franchise, is it smart to make the same game again?
I would say no, but like I can't really read EA's mind on this one.
Look,
I'm thrilled we're getting it.
Yeah. I'm so excited to get it and to play it, and I'm pumped, but I'm just talking about fiscally for EA and Electronic Arts. And Peter Moore, people have asked Peter Moore this question, and he doesn't really have a good answer for it either. Some people have asked him, like, why are you making this game when the first one didn't sell that well? And, if I were him and if the game were different, I would be like, well, look, we've made some changes to the game to make it appeal to a wider audience. But it really doesn't appear that they have. I mean, maybe more people are open to a concept like this in today's day and age than they were when the original came out.
Maybe you're angling on kind of the idea. We don't know what the marketing campaign will be, but because it's EA, obviously it will be big.
Yeah. And expensive.
Maybe you're I mean, this is it does look a lot like the first game, but it looks like nothing else that's out there right now.
It does, but so did the last one.
Yeah, but I think if you can really message it, I think the audience might be there for this one in the sense that here's a game that looks this good, it's clean, it's futuristic, it doesn't really look like anything. It kind of looks like a cell phone commercial in places, but it doesn't look like anything else, and I feel like it's so centered on movement and transition and it's not like your usual violent shooter action. I feel like maybe they're angling at women gamers and non-traditional gamers and people who don't necessarily want to play the same shooter stuff over and over, but want a big budget, a really well-produced, top level AAA game, and maybe they're trying to test those waters with it. That's an audience that people have been kind of the major publishers have been afraid to try to court because because every time they do try, they fail. That's why. But maybe EA thinks they have this one figured out, or maybe EA thinks it's worth. Whoever finds that sweet spot is gonna hit it big, and or it could just be EA wanting to be like, look, we're not a company that just churns out like all these cookie cutter games. Maybe it's just more of a street cred play, hoping that they get their money back and maybe a little more. I'm really excited for it. I think most of the people probably watching GameFace right now and watching the archive on Sifted are really excited for it. We're going to be there. It'll just be interesting to see who else is. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't put any money on it ripping up the sales charts, but I'll play it day one for sure. And so before we close out the show, I think I have a couple honorable mentions I wanted to mention. Tomb Raider went up for me after Gamescom. They
put out a demo that actually showed tomb raiding.
That's good.
That was incredible.
Did it rise?
So I was really excited about that. I thought that increased my hype for that game significantly, and I think people who own only a PlayStation 4 are probably going to maybe have a little bit of a harder wait after seeing that demo. Mm-hmm. And also Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Finally took like one little step up for me. Like, I'm still less excited about this installment in the series than any other. Like, literally any other. I've never been this unexcited for an Assassin's Creed ever. But they did show like some stuff during games. They showed a lot of this game at Gamescom, by the way, which is fitting. Ubisoft is a European company.
I like there was the cloaking kind of thing where it's
like,
oh, stealth.
Yeah.
I remember that being in this series. Yeah.
And so, my hype level for that went up a little bit. Still nowhere near where it usually is for the other games, but
well,
those two games,
we got to win us back on this one.
There's a little time. I mean, the game still doesn't come out for a few months. They have a lot of time to release some new media, maybe put out a demo, although I kind of doubt it.
True.
But yeah, both of those games that were kind of lukewarm with me did get a little bit of a bump up. So overall, I'd say it was a great Gamescom.
Yeah.
It's funny, I will say this though, like, working on Sifted and curating all the content and bringing everything in, even though this show is like 8 times the size of E3 as far as attendance is concerned, the content-wise, it's not even the same league as E3. E3 is still the king by a landslide. I mean, I think we curated, it's probably like 350, 400 pieces of content from Gamescom. We did like 2,000 for E3 in like 3 days.
Gamescom, as big as it is, it's for us. It's for the gamers. I think it's more of a enthusiast thing. Yeah. That's what they let the general public in. It's it's what it's for. Whereas you'll see the number of things out of Gamescom as E3 when CNN starts paying attention to Gamescom. E3 is still your shot to get the mainstream coverage and the mainstream outlets in a way that like nothing else in the year can offer.
Yep. So that's our Gamescom wrap-up. Hope you guys enjoyed the show on Sifted. Obviously, we curated a lot of good stuff. You guys were providing some really good comments on a lot of the stuff that we were talking about on today's show. The community has just been absolutely incredible. Somebody on the site today was talking about how they can't believe it. They've been on the site all this time. They've never seen an argument, and I haven't either. I've never even seen an argument.
It really doesn't. Like everybody, like even if people disagree on things, I've seen it's like, yeah, that's a good point.
They're like, oh, I get it.
Like, that guy came back just to post that it was a good point.
Yeah, I can see your perspective or stuff like that. So you guys are just awesome, all you sifters. So just want to say thank you for supporting the site during Gamescom. I had a blast curating for you guys and getting the stuff up on there. I do want to say a big announcement is coming very, very soon, probably within the next week. I'll just be perfectly honest with you. I'm just waiting for the show graphics to be done, and when they're done, you are going to know about it. So a big, big announcement coming very soon that everyone is going to be very excited for, and I'm very excited to share it with everybody. So keep an eye out for that. As I said, Matt is the permanent co-host of GameFace going forward, so you can count on the show coming every week from here on out. I do want to apologize. I know last week I promised you that we would have one next week. That's why we're doing it on Tuesday, by the way, because I had promised you that we would have one for you. Matt had forgotten that he had to go out of town.
Yeah, we'd established that, and then I guess I didn't even realize it was coming up that fast.
Yeah. And so that's why we're doing it on Tuesday, because we want to get a show to you guys as quickly as possible after promising you one. And we will have another show. We're not going to wait another 8 or 9 days for another show. We'll have another one coming up real soon. So I think our new TriCaster operator, he did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
A couple mistakes here and there.
It's not easy.
It is not easy, man. There's a lot of moving parts to this show. I mean, I think I loaded in like 25 pieces of video into the TriCaster before this episode. There's a lot of work that goes on for this show, people.
I didn't even realize until like I was giving him some tips before this, like how many weird little rituals and kind of like button combos I'd worked up to get all this stuff to work. Because we're pushing this thing to do a couple things it doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
And you kind of got to figure it out. And
the show seems simple when you're watching it. You don't realize all the work that goes into GameFace, but we hope that you guys think that it's worth it. And I know you guys are enjoying it, obviously, based on your response. So actually, let's take maybe one question from our viewers before we split, because I know people always appreciate that if we can answer 1 or 2 questions. But let's just get one in here at least. See what they're asking. And of course, my iPad is completely closed down. We're almost near the 2-hour mark. Another 2-hour episode.
Yep. We're about 1:45 right now, I think.
Yeah. And I can't get Twitch chat to load, unfortunately.
Ow.
I don't know why, but our Wi-Fi is running really slow. I'm sorry, folks. I cannot get the chat to load. So, no questions this week. But thank you for tuning in. Anybody who's watching in Europe on a Tuesday night, big fist bump for that one. If you guys are watching in Europe, we really appreciate it, though I kind of doubt it, but that's what the archive is for on the site. So, as always, people, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.